Christian is 35. He started a construction business nearly 7 years ago while property in Hungary was booming. This batch of houses on the outskirts of the Hungarian capital Budapest is one of his latest projects.
Since the crisis, our sales have fallen practically to zero. But for the past week and a half, when it was known Hungary will be getting help from the International Monetary Fund, the trend has reversed completely. People want to buy, and they want to pay in cash.
Christian is doing quite well, even though Hungary's financial crisis has hit the construction sector hard. Attila and Andrea are more worried. They bought their house a year ago on a 25-year variable interest rate mortgage. Like a lot of Hungarians, their loan is in Swiss francs. The interest rate was much better than they could get for the forint. But since the family's income is in forints, the recent slide in the Hungarian currency has wiped out any advantage.
The crisis has caused a 20% rise in our monthly reimbursements for the house. Obviously, that's causing us difficulties. We've had to invest rather a lot in furnishing the place this past year, but now we really have to take care of how we spend.
With the bigger payments on the loan, plus higher prices in stores in the last 2 months, we have to calculate what we buy. We've had to put some of our projects on hold, like taking vacation, for instance. We also wanted a second child, but now it's pretty sure we're going to wait another 3 to 4 years for that.
Andrea is on maternity leave, and she doesn't know if her job in the public sector will still exist next year, given the austerity measures the government has announced. Attila is also worried, working for a foreign company that's been forced to freeze its projects because of the financial dive Hungary has taken. His father says the country's not equipped to handle the strains of market economics. The social safety net bequeathed by the former communist regime costs too much.
Under the present conditions, Hungary can no longer afford its social system. Such as it is, none of the countries in Western Europe have one like it. For example, pensioners are paid a bonus extra month in the year. Mothers are paid to stay at home with their children for 2 years. We don't have the financial means with the debts Hungary has.
The global financial crisis has driven Hungary to freeze public sector salaries and suspend annual bonuses. This was part of the requirements to qualify for the 25 billion euros in help put up by the IMF, EU, European Central Bank and World Bank. Hungary is the first country in the European Union to apply for this kind of aid. This is in a country for a long time thought of as one of the strongest performing member states. In this former Hungarian central bank governor's opinion, Europe should have seen the shock coming.
We joined the EU May 2004 with a pretty high deficit, and the government received signals that it's too high. But the EU gave the Hungarian government 2 more years to go on and build further deficits. So the European screening mechanism turned out to be pretty soft, giving too much time to the Hungarian government to keep on spending the taxpayers' money, and now we are paying the price.
The national public deficit in Hungary is one of the highest in the EU, but international aid now should let the country replenish its foreign currency reserves and pay off some of its external debt. The banking sector has to solve its liquidity problems. More than 80% of Hungary's banks are foreign-owned, notably German and Austrian. The loans to Hungary, therefore, are meant to prevent a domino effect. The mother banks are worried and are suspending their expansion plans in Hungary, this analyst with one Austrian bank in Budapest admits.
There are many banks who built up their business strategies over the past years to expand in Central and Eastern Europe. And this expansion was possible because of the huge loan book increase. This is the factor what we cannot expect to continue over next year. And all these banks, Austrian banks, German banks, Italian banks and Scandinavian banks, especially in the Baltic states, will face very difficult times.
The credit crisis is also painful for Hungarian companies. Leos Csiky-Bege is one of the country's biggest car dealers. The company has just laid off around 15 employees. In this sector, about a quarter of the companies are expected to go bankrupt soon. This entrepreneur says the massive aid package won't help the real economy. He says taxes are strangling it, and the parallel economy and currency speculation are undermining it.
Hungary, as a small market, it's a playground for a lot of people who are playing with the shares of the Hungarian companies. They are playing with the currencies, and this playground is bringing a lot of profit for some ones, but not for the real economy. To cut off these risks, I should prefer to pay our bills in euro, to have our incomes in euro, and to pay also our banking costs in euro.
Before that can happen, Hungary would have to revive growth. Yet the government acknowledges that recession is inevitable, projecting the economy will shrink by 1% next year. The economy minister is counting on the outside commitments to bring down the budget deficit and on structural reform to relaunch the real economy.
I think the right conclusion is we need the euro. We need the euro as fast as we can. With those measures that we have taken, cutting back budget deficit way down within the Maastricht criteria, significantly dropping inflation, and a decreasing government indebtedness. These three criteria will allow us to go for an early euro date.
In the meantime, jobs are being lost by the thousands. At the factories of the American giant General Electric, 500 Hungarians have been put out of work, not because of the crisis, it says, but because activity is being relocated. Light bulb production is cheaper in China. This union official shares his fears of further impact brought on by reduced demand. He says the advantages of the euro and being part of the EU are relative.
The EU is going to remove or already has removed tariffs on Chinese imports. This will hit the light bulb market hard. Imports from China will be even less expensive. As a result, jobs not only at General Electric but at other manufacturers like Philips and Osram will be threatened even more.
Az Osramos, a Philips-es és az összes többi munkahelyek is, ahol fényforrást termelnek, még nagyobb veszélybe lesz.
Europe will need no end of bright ideas, not only to weather the current international financial storm, but in the aftermath as well.